Admiral Taiho stood, alone on the observation deck of the Earth Station Nova. The stars stretched out before him, like scattered diamonds on black cloth. He had watched these same stars for 30 years of service, and they had always brought him peace. But tonight, they offered nothing. His communicator had been silent for 3 hours. That silence was worse than any alarm. The door behind him slid open. Commander Woojin walked in slowly. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking. Taiho had served with Woojin for 15 years. He had never seen the man shake before. "How many?" Taiho asked, without turning around. 47,000, Woojin said. His voice was barely a whisper. 17 colony worlds. All at the same time? Children between 5 and 12 years old. Taiho closed his eyes. The number was too large to understand. 47,000 children. Gone in a single night. Yuna. She was visiting her grandmother on Colony 7. Woojin did not answer. He did not need to. Taiho turned around and looked at his old friend. There were tears in Woojin's eyes. The commander was thinking of his own son, Minho, who had disappeared from Colony 12. "Do we know who did this?" Taiho asked. "The Council," Woojin said. It was the Galactic Council. For a moment, Taiho did not understand. The Council was their ally. Humanity had joined the Council 300 years ago. They had followed every rule. They had been peaceful. They had been good. "That is not possible," Taiho said. Ambassador Mira confirmed it herself. Woojin replied. "She said it was necessary. She said humanity was growing too fast. She said our children would be raised on distant worlds, far from human influence. She called it a gift." Taiho felt something cold spread through his chest. It was not sadness. It was not fear. It was something older and darker. Something that humanity had buried long ago. "A gift," Taiho repeated. "The Council has maintained peace for 15,000 years, Woojin said. They believe they have the right to control all species. They believe they are protecting the galaxy from us." "From us?" Taiho said. "From humans?" He walked to the window and pressed his hand against the cold glass. Somewhere out there, across impossible distances, his little girl was alone and afraid. She was 9 years old. She liked to draw pictures of flowers. She was afraid of the dark. "The Prime Minister wants to see you," Woojin said. "He's meeting with the Military Council in 1 hour. Taiho nodded slowly. "Tell me something, Woojin. In all your years of service, have you ever wondered why the Council never worried about us? Why they let a young species like humanity join their ranks so easily?" "I assumed they saw us as harmless," Woojin said. "Exactly," Taiho replied. "They saw us as children ourselves. Young, weak, easy to control." He turned to face Woojin. "They have made a terrible mistake." 1 hour later, Taiho stood in a room filled with the most powerful people on Earth. Prime Minister Seo sat at the head of the table. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with quiet fury. Around him sat generals, admirals, scientists, and diplomats. "Ambassador Mira has delivered the Council's official statement," Prime Minister Seok said. "They claim this action was necessary for galactic stability. They say human population growth threatens the balance of resources. They say our children will be happier without the burden of human culture." General Doyen, an old man with white hair and sharp eyes, slammed his fist on the table. "They stole our children and called it mercy. This is an act of war. If we declare war, we die," said a diplomat named Junho. "The Council has 12 elder species. Their combined fleet is 500 times larger than ours. They have controlled the galaxy for 15,000 years. So we do nothing?" Doyen demanded. "We let them take our children and bow our heads." "I did not say that," Junho replied quietly. Prime Minister Seo raised his hand for silence. "We have a choice to make. We can accept this and hope the Council shows mercy in the future. Or we can fight and risk the complete destruction of humanity." The room fell silent. Everyone knew the truth. Against the Council's combined might, humanity had no chance. Their ships were fast but few. Their weapons were good but not enough. A war would last perhaps a week before Earth itself was burned to ash. "There is a third option," said a young woman at the end of the table. Her name was Sora, and she worked in intelligence. "We do nothing publicly. We apologize, comply. We make them believe we have accepted their punishment." "And privately?" Taiho asked. Sora smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Privately, we prepare. The council thinks they know everything about us. They are wrong. For 300 years, we have shown them only what we wanted them to see." "What are you suggesting?" Prime Minister Seok asked. "I am suggesting that we remind the galaxy why our ancestors looked up at the stars with fear," Sora said. "I am suggesting that we bring our children home and make the council understand that some lines should never be crossed." Taiho looked around the room. He saw fear in some faces and anger in others. But in every pair of eyes, he saw the same thing: determination. The council had taken 47,000 children. They had expected humanity to cry and beg and accept their fate. They had expected a young species to bow before the wisdom of their elders. They did not understand what they had awakened. Taiho thought of his daughter Yuna. He thought of her smile, and her laugh, and her small hand holding his. He made a promise to her, silently across the stars. He would bring her home. He would bring all of them home, and the galaxy would learn what happened when you touched humanity's children. 6 months passed, and the galaxy believed humanity was broken. Earth sent official apologies to the council every week. Human diplomats bowed their heads in meetings. Human traders spoke softly and accepted unfair deals. Human ships stayed within their borders and caused no trouble. The Velen. Ambassador Mira reported to the council that the humans had learned their lesson. The young species had finally understood their place in the galactic order. Peace would continue for another 15,000 years. She could not have been more wrong. Deep beneath the frozen surface of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, there was a base that did not exist on any map. It had been built in secret over 200 years ago, hidden from the council's sensors by technology it did not know humanity possessed. Admiral Taiho walked through the long metal corridors of this hidden place. He had not slept more than 4 hours a night since his daughter was taken. His hair had turned gray at the edges. His eyes had grown hard. General Doyen met him at the entrance to the main command center. The old soldier looked tired but alive with purpose. "Or the preparations?" Taiho asked. "Ahead of schedule," Doyen replied. "The fleet will be ready in 2 weeks." They entered the command center together. The room was filled with screens and holographic displays. Officers moved quickly between stations, speaking in hushed voices. At the center of it all stood Sora, the young intelligence officer who had suggested this plan 6 months ago. "Admiral," Sora said, nodding at Taiho. "Ha, good news. We have found all of them." She touched a control panel and a map of the galaxy appeared in the air before them. 19 points of light glowed red across the map. 47,000 children spread across 19 council worlds, Sora explained. The Velen homeworld holds the largest group, about 12,000. The Korath breeding colonies hold another 8,000. The rest are scattered across Sin agricultural worlds and smaller outposts. "How did you find them?" Doyen asked. Sora smiled slightly. "The council believes their communication networks are secure. They are not. For 6 months, I have had teams inside their systems reading every message, watching every transmission. They never suspected a thing." Taiho studied the map. 19 worlds. Some were heavily defended. Some were not. But all of them were deep inside council space, surrounded by enemy fleets and stations. "Can we reach them all at the same time?" he asked. "Yes," said a new voice. Commander Woojin approached from the far side of the room. Behind him walked a woman with short black hair and intense eyes. Her name was Hannah, and she was the lead scientist of Project Voidbreak. "Show him," Woojin said. Hannah touched her tablet, and new images appeared on the main screen. They showed ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Sleek and dark, they seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. "We call them shadow walkers," Hannah said. "They can fold space. One moment they are here. The next moment, They are on the other side of the galaxy. The Council's sensors cannot detect them. Their weapons cannot touch them. How is this possible? Taiho asked. The Council has studied space travel for millions of years. Hannah's expression grew cold. The Council stopped trying to improve long ago. They believed they had learned everything. They became comfortable, lazy. She paused. Humanity never stopped learning. We just stopped showing them what we learned. Doyen laughed, a rough sound. For 300 years, we played the part of the simple young species. We let them believe we were barely capable of reaching the stars. All while we built this. Why? Taiho asked. Why hide our true power? Because we hoped we would never need to use it, Wujin said quietly. We joined the Council in peace. We wanted to be part of their community. We hid our weapons because we believed in a future without war. His voice hardened. They made that future impossible. Taiho nodded slowly. He understood. Humanity had chosen peace not because they were weak, but because they remembered what war truly meant. Their history was written in blood and fire. They had learned through terrible suffering. That violence destroyed everything it touched. But some things were worth fighting for. What about ground forces? Taiho asked. Already training, Doyon replied. Lieutenant Jiho leads the primary assault teams. Sergeant Heijin commands the rescue squads. They have been preparing for this moment their entire lives. They will not fail. Sora stepped forward again. There is something else you should know, Admiral. Our ships have already been positioned at key points throughout Council space. During the past 6 months, while we apologized and bowed and played weak, we moved 67 warships to the gravitational choke points of every Council homeworld. Taiho stared at her. You mean, if we wanted to destroy them, we could do it right now, Sora said calmly. Every elder species, every Council world, gone in a matter of hours. They have no idea. The room fell silent. The weight of those words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Du-Hyun spoke first. We will not use that power unless we must. We are going to rescue our children. Nothing more. We will show the galaxy what humanity can do, and then we will show them what humanity chooses not to do. Taiho thought about his daughter again. Yuna, 9 years old, afraid of the dark. When do we begin? He asked. 14 days, Wujin replied. On the anniversary of the taking, they will be celebrating their victory over us. They will not expect what comes next. Taiho looked at the map one more time. 19 worlds. 47,000 children. The greatest rescue operation in the history of any species. Send a message to all team leaders, Taiho said. Tell them to be ready. Tell them, we are bringing our children home. Around the room, officers began to move faster. Orders were given. Plans were finalized. The galaxy thought humanity was broken. In 14 days, they would learn the truth. The Council would later call it the Night of Broken Stars. They would speak of it in whispers for generations. They would teach their children about the night when the humans came. It began at exactly midnight, Earth time, across 19 different worlds. Spread across thousands of light years, space itself seemed to tear open. Black ships appeared from nowhere, silent and deadly. They moved like ghosts through the darkness between stars. On the Velen homeworld, Ambassador Mira was attending a celebration. The Great Hall was filled with important leaders from all 12 elder species. They were drinking rare wines and congratulating themselves on successfully controlling the young human species. Then the lights went out. When they came back on, human soldiers stood at every door. They wore black armor that seemed to absorb light. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets. They did not speak. They did not need to. Lieutenant Jiho walked through the center of the Great Hall. He was a young man, only 25 years old. But he moved with the calm confidence of someone who had trained for this moment his entire life. Where are the children? He asked simply. Ambassador Mira stood up. Her tall, thin body was shaking. This is an act of war, she said. The Council will destroy your entire species for this. Jiho looked at her with eyes that held no fear. Where are the children? he asked again. A Velen general tried to reach for his weapon. Before his hand moved 3 inches, a human soldier had crossed the room and put him on the ground. The movement was so fast that most of the guests did not even see it happen. "You can do this the easy way or the hard way," Jiho said. "The easy way is you tell us where the children are, and nobody gets hurt. The hard way is we search every building on this planet while your defenses burn in orbit." As if to prove his point, the windows of the Great Hall suddenly glowed bright orange. Outside, Velen warships were falling from the sky in flames. The planetary defense grid, which had protected this world for 10,000 years, was gone. Ambassador Mira's face went white. "The Eastern District?" she whispered. "The Education Center." "Please do not hurt anyone." Gaho smiled behind his helmet. "We are not here to hurt anyone. We are here to bring our children home." In orbit above the Korath breeding colonies, Captain Yunji sat in the command chair of her ship, the Silent Thunder. She was watching her tactical display with a small smile on her face. "Ma'am, the Korath fleet is powering up their shields," her sensor officer reported. "How long until they are ready to fight?" Yunji asked. "Approximately 4 minutes." Yunji pressed a button on her console. "Then let us give them something to worry about." The Silent Thunder fired once. A beam of compressed dark matter shot across the void and struck the central Korath command station. The station, which had taken 300 years to build, disappeared in a flash of light. The remaining Korath ships immediately began to retreat. "Ouch. Bring us in close to the colony," Yunji ordered. "Launch the rescue shuttles. We have 8,000 children waiting for us." On the surface of a Sin agricultural world, Sergeant Hagen led his team through endless fields of purple grain. The night air was warm and smelled of strange flowers. Under different circumstances, it might have been beautiful. But Hagen was not here to enjoy the scenery. "The camp is just ahead," said Nari, his team's medic. She was checking her scanner, looking for human life signs. "I am reading over 4,000 children." They reached the edge of the camp and stopped. It was surrounded by a simple fence. Guard towers stood at each corner, but the guards inside seemed confused. They had heard about the attacks on other worlds. They did not know what to do. Hagen raised his hand and made a signal. His team moved like shadows through the darkness. Within 30 seconds, every guard was unconscious on the ground. The gates swung open. Tajin walked inside. The children were kept in long buildings with small windows. Some were sleeping. Some were crying. Some just sat in silence, staring at nothing. Hagen entered the first building. 100 small faces turned to look at him. Fear filled their eyes. They had learned to be afraid of adults. Slowly, Hagen removed his helmet. He knelt down, so he was at their level. "My name is Hagen," he said softly. "I am from Earth. I am here to take you home." A small girl in the front row began to cry. "They told us Earth forgot about us," she said. "They told us nobody was coming." Hagen felt his heart break. He reached out and gently touched the girl's shoulder. "I never forgot," he said. "Not for one single day. Your parents have been waiting for you. Your families have been counting every second. We crossed the entire galaxy to find you." He smiled, though his eyes were wet. "Nobody gets left behind. Not ever." Nari entered the building behind him. She moved quickly between the children, checking for injuries, offering water and food. Other soldiers followed, carrying blankets and toys. "We need to move," one of Hagen's officers said. "The shuttles are landing." Hagen stood up and looked at the children. They were scared and confused. Some could barely remember their own names. The council had tried to erase everything that made them human, but they were still human, and now they were going home. "Everyone follow me," Hagen said. "Stay close. Stay quiet. Tonight, you are going to see the stars from a human ship. And tomorrow, you are going to see your families again." Across 19 worlds, the same scene played out again and again. Human soldiers moved through enemy territory like water through sand. They found the children. They carried them to safety. They brought them home. The operation lasted exactly 4 hours. When it was over, 47,000 children were on their way back to Earth, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 days after the rescue, the Galactic Assembly gathered for an emergency meeting. Representatives from all 12 elder species filled the great circular chamber. Their faces showed shock, anger, and fear. Mostly fear. For 15,000 years, the Council had controlled the galaxy. They had decided which species could grow and which must shrink. They had taken resources from the weak and given them to the strong. They had believed, truly believed, they were the masters of all creation. Now they sat in silence. Waiting for the humans to speak, Prime Minister Seok walked to the center of the chamber. He was an old man with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple black suit. He carried no weapons. He needed none. Behind him stood Commander Woojin, holding a small tablet computer. 3 days ago, Seok began, his voice steady and clear. Humanity conducted a military operation across 19 of your worlds. We recovered 47,000 children who were taken from their families without consent. We destroyed portions of your orbital defenses and disabled several of your military stations. The room stirred with angry murmurs. A Korath general stood up, his massive form trembling with rage. "This is an act of war," he shouted. "The Council demands justice. You will surrender your military leaders for trial. You will pay for the damage you have caused." "You will sit down," Seok said quietly. The Korath general stopped talking. Something in Seok's voice made him pause. It was not anger. It was not threat. It was simply certainty. "I did not come here to negotiate," Seok continued. "I came here to explain. You took our children. You believed you had the right because you are old and we are young. You believed we would accept this because we are weak and you are strong." He paused. "You were wrong." Ambassador Myra rose from her seat. Her voice was cold with barely controlled fury. "You cannot threaten the Council," she said. "We have ruled this galaxy for 15,000 years. Our combined military forces number in the millions. We have weapons that could turn your homeworld into dust. If you think one successful raid makes you our equal, you are foolish." Seok nodded slowly. "You are right. One raid does not make us your equal." He turned to Commander Woojin. "Show them." Woojin touched his tablet. Above the center of the chamber, a holographic map of the galaxy appeared. 67 red points of light glowed at strategic locations throughout Council space. "For the past 6 months," Seok explained, "while we apologized and bowed and pretended to accept our punishment, we positioned warships at every gravitational choke point near your homeworlds. These ships carry weapons that can destroy planets. They have been there for weeks. You never detected them." The chamber fell completely silent. "Right now," Seok continued, "at this very moment, humanity has the ability to end the Velen civilization. The Korath civilization, the sin, all 12 of your elder species. We could destroy 15,000 years of history in a single day." A Sin diplomat stood up, her face pale. "Then why haven't you? Why tell us this?" Seok looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "Because we are human," he said. "And being human means something. It means we choose." He stepped forward, closer to the assembled representatives. "Your species had millions of years to evolve. You grew slowly. You learned patience. You forgot what it meant to fight for survival. But humanity is young. We are only a few 100,000 years old. We grew up on a dangerous world, surrounded by predators and disasters. We learned to fight before we learned to speak. Violence is written into our very blood." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We know what we are capable of. We know the darkness that lives inside us. Our history is filled with war and cruelty and destruction. We have done terrible things to each other. But we also learned something that you never did. We learned to control ourselves. We learned that strength without mercy is meaningless. We learned that the true measure of power is not what you can destroy, but what you choose to protect." Seok turned in a slow circle, meeting the eyes of every representative in the chamber. "You took our children because you believed we were a threat. You were right to believe it. We are a threat. We are perhaps the greatest threat this galaxy has ever seen. But we chose peace. For 300 years, we chose to be your allies instead of your conquerors. We hid our true power because we hoped we would never need to use it." He stopped and faced Ambassador Mira directly. "You made us show our teeth. That was your mistake. But we will not bite unless you force us to. Our children are home. Our families are whole again. This matter is finished." His voice hardened. "But know this, if any species, anywhere in this galaxy, ever touches a human child again, we will not stop at rescue. We will not accept apologies. We will burn worlds. We will end civilizations. We will make the stars themselves weep with sorrow." The silence in the chamber was absolute. "We do not want war," Seok said finally. "We want to live in peace beside you. We want to trade and learn and grow together. But peace requires trust, and trust requires boundaries. This is our boundary. Do not cross it again." He turned and walked toward the exit. Commander Wujin followed close behind. At the door, Seok paused and looked back over his shoulder. "You called us young and foolish. You were half right. We are young, but we are not foolish. We know exactly what we are. The question is, do you?" He walked out of the chamber without waiting for an answer. Behind him, the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in stunned silence. They had underestimated humanity. They would never make that mistake again. 1 year had passed since the night of broken stars. The galaxy was different now. The old rules were gone. The council still existed, but it was not the same council that had ruled for 15,000 years. A new charter had been written, and humanity had helped write it. No species could interfere with another's children. No species could impose population limits on another. Conflicts would be resolved through discussion, not force. The elder species had agreed to these terms because they had no choice. They had seen what humanity could do. They had learned to be afraid, but fear was not all they felt. On a small colony world at the edge of human space, Admiral Taiho sat on the porch of a simple wooden house. The evening sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Fields of golden wheat stretched out before him, moving gently in the warm breeze. He was retired now. He had given 32 years of his life to the fleet. That was enough. The door behind him opened and a young girl came running out. She was 10 years old, with long dark hair and bright curious eyes. She jumped into the chair beside him and looked up at the sky. Father Yuna said, "Why do you always watch the stars?" Taiho smiled and put his arm around his daughter. She had been home for a year now, but sometimes he still could not believe she was really there. He would wake up in the middle of the night and walk to her room just to watch her breathe. "I think about things," he said. "I think about the past." "What kind of things?" Taiho was quiet for a moment. How could he explain to a child what they had almost become? How could he tell her about the darkness that had nearly consumed them all? "I think about choices," he said finally. "About the difference between what we can do and what we should do." Yuna nodded as if she understood. Perhaps she did. Children often understood more than adults expected. "My teacher says that humans are heroes now," Yuna said. "She says we save the children and change the galaxy forever." "That is true," Taiho agreed. "But being a hero is not about being strong. It is about being strong and still choosing to be kind." Far away, on the planet Earth, General Do Yan stood before a class of young soldiers. They were the newest graduates of the United Earth Academy. They wore their uniforms with pride. Their eyes were full of hope and determination. "Today you become defenders of humanity," Doyen said. His voice was rough with age, but it carried across the great hall. "You have trained your bodies and your minds. You have learned to fight in ways that would terrify our enemies. But I am not here to talk about fighting." He paused and looked out at the young faces before him. 1 year ago, we proved that we could burn the galaxy. We showed them power they never imagined. We made the elder species tremble in fear. He shook his head slowly. "That was the easy part. Any fool can destroy. It takes no wisdom to bring death and fire. The hard part, the part that makes us truly human, is choosing not to. Every day. Forever." A young woman in the front row raised her hand. "Sir, what if they threaten us again? What if they try to take our children?" Doyan smiled grimly. Then we will remind them why they learned to fear us. But only then. Only when there is no other choice. Our strength exists to protect, not to conquer. Remember that. Always remember that. In a quiet hospital on Colony 7, Nari the medic walked through rows of beds. The children here were healing. Some had physical injuries. Most had wounds that could not be seen, wounds to the mind and heart that would take years to fully heal. A small boy sat alone by a window, staring out at the passing clouds. Nari recognized him. He was the same boy who had refused to leave his cell during the rescue. He still did not speak much. She sat down beside him. "Hello, Junsu," she said gently. The boy did not respond. He kept staring out the window. "I brought you something." Nari reached into her pocket and pulled out a small paper crane. She had learned to fold them when she was young, during long nights in medical school. "Juns," you looked at the crane. Slowly, he reached out and took it. "My mother used to make these," he whispered. It was the first time he had mentioned his family. Nari felt tears in her eyes, but she kept her voice steady. "Would you like to meet her? She has been waiting for you." The boy's lower lip trembled. "They told me she forgot about me." "They lied," Nari said. "She has called this hospital every single day for a year. She has never stopped looking for you." "Not for one moment," Junsu began to cry. Nari wrapped her arms around him and held him tight. "It is okay," she whispered. "You are home now. You are safe. And nobody will ever take you away again." Across the galaxy, the elder species watched humanity with new eyes. Some still felt fear. They remembered the black ships and the dark matter weapons and the terrible power that humans kept hidden. But others felt something different. They felt hope. Because if a species so young, so violent, so full of fire could choose peace, perhaps the universe was not as cold and dark as they had believed. Perhaps even the oldest and most tired civilizations could learn to be better in the great halls of the council. Diplomats who had ruled for thousands of years now asked for human advice. When conflicts arose between species, human mediators were requested. When children were threatened anywhere in the galaxy, human ships arrived to protect them. A new phrase spread through the stars. It was whispered in trading posts and shouted in celebrations. It was written in history books and taught to children of every species. They called humanity many things: warriors, saviors, protectors. But the name that lasted, the name that meant the most, was simple. They called them the ones who could have been monsters, but chose to be more. And somewhere, on a small wooden porch on a distant colony world, a father watched the stars with his daughter and knew that they had made the right choice, not because it was easy, but because it was human.